Okay, so I gave you an exercise, and then the exercise said you have to play with the heading tags, right, or the heading elements. So I'm gonna do it for you to see. So I'm gonna change this one to H2, and I'll change this to H2. Yeah. So we have our opening tag and a closing tag, and we refresh our browser, and you can see H2 is here. All right. So you can do it. So I'm gonna change this directly to H6. And I'll refresh my browser. And you can see H6, our heading became really small. You wouldn't like using this, right? Good. So now let's bring this to normal. Good. And I'm actually going to remove everything here. All right, good. Now we're going to discuss what we call attributes. Okay, we're going to discuss attributes. Now, what are attributes? When we talk about attributes, what are attributes? In other words, in a layman's view, attributes are a form of additional description, okay, that we give to an element. Take note of what I'm saying. Additional description that we give to an element, okay. For instance, I am a human being, right? And as a human being, I have an identity. So my identity is an attribute, is a property. So attributes, in other words, are properties of an element, okay. Good. So every HTML element, okay, that are mostly used inside the body, okay, the body tag, this body tag have elements. Please take note of what I'm saying. I said most, is it all, almost all the elements used inside the body tag, okay, the body tags, okay, have attributes or have properties. The body itself, the body tag itself can have properties or attributes, but the head tag cannot have attributes. The title cannot have attributes, but the head can have children or children tags or children elements with what attributes. Okay, is the title is not the only element that can be found in head. There are other elements that can be placed in head. As time goes on, you get to know them. And then the HTML element here, okay, the HTML tag, you cannot apply properties. You cannot apply the body properties or the body attributes to them. They also have their own special properties. So this can have an attribute. This cannot have an attribute now. This cannot have an attribute now. But they have tags inside them that can have attributes. This can have an attribute. Okay. And then they have tags inside them that can have attributes. So now, let's look at an example. Let's pick up the P tag. Okay, that is the paragraph tag. So I'm going to create the P tag. So I've created a paragraph tag, and in the paragraph tag we'll have a content, which will have a lorem of 3 words. Okay, because we only want the lorem of what? 3 words. Now this paragraph tag here or elements can get a property. One property it can get is what we call identity. It can get an identity. Now my identity is nerd, is my name. So ID, my ID is what? Name. Is nerd, sorry. My ID is nerd. My identity is what? Nerd. My height, okay. If let's say we talk about my height and other things, these are all properties, right? And then you have to also take note that some tags or elements have their own special attributes. We'll get to know about one, okay. So paragraph, we can give a paragraph, we can give paragraph an attribute. So let me open Paint application and let me show you how attributes. So let's say I have paragraph tag here. Inside a paragraph, we can have an ID. Now, if you look at it very clearly, you can see the attribute was placed inside what? The open what? Tag. Okay, was placed inside what? The opening tag. So it means we don't put attributes in what? The closing what? Tag. So always put your attribute inside what? Your opening what? Tag. And then attributes, okay, are placed closer to the main what? The tag name. So this is the tag name, and then this is what? The attribute. Okay, this is the tag name. P here is the tag name, and then ID. This is what? The attribute, or this is a property. Okay, so the ID here means identity. ID here means what? Identity, a unique name. Okay. Very good, a unique name. So we've actually given our paragraph a unique name that can identify it. So we have its unique name as what? My P. It means only this paragraph can have the identity my P. If you give another paragraph identity my P, is going to create chaos. For example, let's say we in a class of students, we have two students called Emma. The male child, a male child called Emma, and a female child called Emma. If you enter the class and you say, Emma, get up, what is going to happen? Both of them are going to get up, which will create problem, right? Good. So it means the two have to get a special identity. So what are the special identities? Maybe Emma needs to be given Emma 1, and then the other one called Emma 2. So when you enter the class and you say Emma 2, we know we have only Emma 2 in the class. If I say Emma 1, we know we only have Emma 1. We cannot have any other Emma 1 again. So IDs are always unique to a particular element or tag. So let's come back to our code. So we can put the ID property inside what? The P. So we come here, we say ID, then we hit enter, and we generate the code for us, right? Good. Or this is how it goes, like equals the ID of the person equals, then double quotes, right? Then the name here, okay? That is the unique name here. So the unique name here is my P. Alright, so this is the attribute. This is the attribute. The attribute is what? ID. The attribute name is what? ID. And then the value is what? My P. Right? So we can create another element. So we have another element that is italic. And then we put here Lauren, right? Now Lauren can also have an identity. We can give Lauren a special identity that will be different from other Laurens. So we can give this an ID of my I. Okay? Very good. And it's very unique. You cannot give this name, okay, to any other I. I can create another I like this. And I say ipsum. Right? Good. Now, this particular guy can have his own identity. So I can give it his own identity, that is my I. It cannot have the same identity as this one. Okay, good. You always have to give them the unique identity. So that is it. Today we've learned about ID as an attribute. So attributes are basically properties of an element. Now, let me show you something. You can see that we have I here and then we have I here. These are belong to the same what class. The reason why we say these two i's belong to the same class is because probably they are used for what? Formatting. They are used to make text what? Italic. Let's say I want to separate this from this p tag. Okay, I can do it. I can give these two what? A special attribute that will separate them from this. I'll be getting good. But for now, let's stick to ID. Okay, good. So we are going to play with the attributes. So another attribute that you're gonna play with aside the ID is this. Let me create a paragraph. Let me create about 4 paragraphs, right? And then let me have different kind of things inside. This will have 3 lorem. This will have 2. This will have 4. This will have 1 lorem inside, right? Good. Now these are all paragraphs, right? But I can classify the paragraphs. When I say classify a paragraph, what I mean is I can give all this paragraph the same identity. For instance, undergraduate students who are in level 100 in a university, okay, when we meet them, we call them level 100 students. We've classified them using a specific identity that they belong to the class of level 100, right? So the same thing here, we can actually give a property that will be for all. Always make sure to know that IDs, that is attribute ID, is meant for a unique element or to identify only a single word element. But we have another attribute which is called class, which can be given to multiple word elements. Okay, good. For instance, I want this paragraph 3 and paragraph 4, these two, to have the same class, to belong to the same class. This is what I can do. So don't forget about what we did. Control Alt Shift, then the down arrow key 1. Okay, Control Alt Shift and then the down arrow key, so that we can replicate the cursor. Then we create a class. So we call this class. Okay, so you see the class, this is the attribute name, and then the value. So the value here, we can call them paragraphs. So you can see we've been able to give the same class name to this, the same class value to this one. Okay, so it means whatever happens to this will happen to this. Okay, so if I get here and I say all paragraphs should come out, the class with the name of paragraphs will come out. I hope you get it. Very good. So we can give these two separate word class. So let's click inside here to give it an attribute of class. So in here you click there and you hold Control Alt Shift, Control Alt Shift, and then the down arrow key to replicate the cursor. Then you hit on spacebar, then you type class here. Then you can see first project. Sorry, first. Okay, so let's give this paragraphs a class of what? First. So it means these two belong to the same word class. These two belong to the same word class. And this is unique among all of them. I hope you get it. So when we want to make this one color red, it will only affect this one. But when I say all first paragraphs or all paragraphs belonging to the first class should be green, it means this will also become what? This paragraph will also become green. But this paragraph will never become green. Okay, so when we are doing the style, you get to understand more, but we need to treat more attributes. So now let's do one particular element. Okay, an element which can have its own special attribute. Example is marquee, the marquee element. Okay, so we have marquee. Good. So if you look at the marquee here, this is an element. You see, I told you there are a lot of HTML elements out there. So marquee here has an attribute called what? A property called behavior and what? Direction. So this behavior, we're going to give it a direction of upward. Okay, and we're going to have a behavior of slow, or we can even remove the behavior. Okay, or we can keep it there, nothing will happen. So let's put in some data inside here. We say cast. I hope you've been watching movies, right? Cast. Good. So I actually placed this data inside the marquee. So we have a direction of upward. So we save and refresh our browser. And you can see it didn't work, right? It's actually moving sideways. Right. So this is the marquee, right? We need to change this. Good. So up, it's moving up, right? Good. So let's give it a behavior of slow, and it's still not. So I have to look for some of the attributes, right? I've forgotten I don't know whether it's smooth or something, but yeah. So you can be playing with a marquee and another thing. So in the next various course, you're actually going to be playing with the IDs. Okay, that is the attribute ID and class. That will lead us into what we call styles. That is the CSS. We're actually going to lead us into a CSS. But before we get into CSS, we need to create a simple project. Okay, so we'll create a project in the next course.